One man who wrote a hate-filled manifesto opened fire at a synagogue in California, killing one person and injuring three others, including the rabbi, as worshippers marked the final day of Passover.
And Avengers Endgame, the hugely anticipated series ender from Disney and Marvel, sets a new standard for Hollywood blockbusters over the weekend with stunning hauls of $350 million in North America and $1.2 billion worldwide, Industry Watcher Exhibitor Relations estimates.
Amalma Angeles, wherever you're watching from around the world, thank you very much for joining us.
We welcome our viewers here in the Philippines and around the world. Good evening, everyone. I'm Sam Cepeda.
And now to the news. Five people have died as scenes of destruction emerge in the wake of Cyclone Kenneth in Mozambique, the second tropical cyclone to lay waste to the swaths of Mozambique in 5 weeks. The storm slammed into the province of Cabo Delgado on Thursday, killing 5 people, and since then has pounded an area prone to floods and landslides with rain fueling fears rivers could still burst their banks and leave vast areas underwater. On Sunday, there was extensive flooding in the provincial capital of Pemba, with water pouring down roads in a number of neighborhoods, and the authorities trying to evacuate at-risk communities with the help of Red Cross. The region hit by Cyclone Kenneth is a lot more sparsely populated than Beira, which was hit by Cyclone Idai in mid-March. Idai hit central Mozambique 6 weeks ago, and communities in that region are still reeling from floods that swept away homes, roads, and bridges, leaving around 1,000 people dead and hundreds of thousands without shelter.
Tropical cyclone Kenneth made landfall in northern Mozambique near the border with Tanzania, in an area where no storm since the satellite era has ever been observed. So people in that region have never experienced a tropical cyclone, and they've certainly never experienced a tropical cyclone of that intensity.
With maximum sustained wind reportedly reaching speeds of 225 kilometers per hour and gusts that reached 270 kilometers per hour. The storm ripped off roofs of some homes, and it continues to generate heavy rainfall, resulting in flooding as it moves across Mozambique.
Mozambican authorities evacuated thousands of people, which we hope limited the loss of life. And Tanzania, which also has never seen tropical cyclones, issued red alerts to warn people of the risks, and those red alerts continue today. They're warning of floods and landslides.
Cyclone Kenneth may require a major new humanitarian operation at the same time that the ongoing Cyclone Idai response, targeting 3 million people in 3 countries, remain critically underfunded.
A fire raged through the top floors of a 21-story residential building in the Philippine capital. Officials said an elderly woman was found dead in the upper floors and 5 other people were injured. Mayor Edwin Olivares said by telephone that more than 100 fire trucks battled the blaze at the Pacific Coast Plaza condominium in Parañaque City. The firefighter was given first aid due to fatigue. Investigators will inspect the floors gutted by the fire, which was put under control about 3 hours after it started. The cause of the fire is under investigation.
Over 6,500 people were told to quickly leave their homes near Montreal late Saturday and early Sunday after floodwaters breached a dike in rain-soaked eastern Canada. The evacuations came as Prime Minister Justin Trudeau called for increased measures to make infrastructure climate resilient. The flooding across Ontario, Quebec, and New Brunswick highlights how important it is that we fight climate change and that we adapt and mitigate the impacts of more extreme weather events, he said. According to the latest government data, nearly 8,000 people have been forced from their homes in Quebec, more than in 2017, during what was then the area's worst flooding in half a century. The barrier protecting Saint-Martin-sur-le-Lac, just west of Montreal, gave way Saturday night, causing a surge of water to up to 1.5 meters or 5 feet to crash through the area. Hundreds of policemen, firefighters, and soldiers helped evacuate nearly 2,600 homes in the area, according to a provincial police spokesman. Around 1,700 soldiers have been deployed to the hardest hit regions, and Montreal and Ottawa declared states of emergency last week.
Ottawa's mayor declared a state of emergency in the Canadian capital in anticipation of rising flood waters and heavy rains. Andre Lajoie reports from Ottawa, Canada.
Ottawa River is expected to rise above peak level as experienced from the disastrous flood in 2017. The Mayor of Ottawa, Mayor Jim Watson, declared states of emergency. The city says this is a response to the flooding along the river and other waterways in the city, posing a threat. Furthermore, the City of Ottawa requested immediate assistance from the province of Ontario.
The Belle Falls Dam on the Rouge River in western Quebec has reached its limit capacity of holding water reservoir. Officials from forced evacuation of residents downriver, and around 250 residents nearby Greenville-sur-le-Rouge community are encouraged to evacuate. Environment Canada forecasts 25 to 30 millimeters of rainfall in the around Ottawa by Saturday. With water levels rising rapidly, warming temperatures, melting snow, significant rainfall, and overflow of the Belle Falls Dam, communities and residents along the Ottawa River are at risk. Ontario Premier Doug Ford answered urgently the city's request of assistance and management of the emergency situation. The Premier visited Constance Bay, one of the hardest hit area in northwest of Ottawa, to check the flood occurrence and to reach out to the residents. Around 400 Canadian armed forces are deployed to help out in sandbagging and carrying out sandbags to residents.
The request came from the province of Ontario through the City of Ottawa for the Canadian Armed Forces to assist, and within minutes we accepted the request. Yesterday we had Canadian Armed Forces reconnaissance teams going all the way up and down the river on the Ottawa side, because they'd already been, of course, on the Gatineau side, and looking at where the priorities and the vulnerabilities are. So today they're going to be deploying based on the Emergency Operations Centre that the province has set up, based on where those priorities are. This is now, in 3 years, this is the second time we've got record level floods. I think that this is a manifestation of climate change, and we need to, I've got Catherine McKenna was out yesterday as well, and we really need to be doing something about climate change as well, because the costs, you can see right here today, of what it does, not just in terms of money, but in terms of people and their homes and their belongings, and what happens when we have this kind of flooding. So, but I'm very heartened by how many volunteers are out.
The people are come here. We've got volunteers here helping sandbag. The military has arrived. They're helping to sandbag, protect homes. The floodwaters are going to be considerably higher than 2017. So we're kind of worried, and we're trying to help. Right now, we're mostly looking for volunteers to come and help fill sandbags. The sandbags are going out faster than they can come, then we can fill them.
City officials are coordinating the evacuation plan with the residents where the flood water poses an imminent risk.
Reporting from Ottawa, I'm Andre Lajoie with Eagle News. I am one with 25.
Thank you, Andre. Meanwhile, near record levels on the Ottawa River through Fair into new neighborhoods as Iglesia Ni Cristo volunteers fanned out across the city to help. Here's Sabir Mufti for the report.
The City of Ottawa has declared a state of emergency due to the rising floodwater levels of the Ottawa River. Floodwater levels are expected to increase more than 2017's disastrous flood. The city is asking for more volunteers to help with flood preparation efforts. According to the city, filling sandbags remains the #1 priority in order to support homeowners along the Ottawa River whose homes are in danger of flooding.
Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you to all the volunteers that are here. To me, one of the best things about the community spirit is that there are a lot of people sandbagging whose houses aren't in danger, but they've come out to help their neighbors. Particularly right now for the flooding, there are different centers. So in my riding, which is right here, Ottawa West Nepean, there is in Britannia Park in the parking lot, there's a command center, and the Salvation Army and a number of NGOs are there as well. And if you go there and register, they'll give you a little bracelet like this one, and they'll send you to where they know the need is the most. And so, for instance, I had a team of people that were sent to Grandview, but there's a number of them that are here as well in, around the Belltown area, but they know where the volunteers are. So if you go there, you register, and there's little shuttle buses. They'll actually take you out to the places where you need to be, and then they'll shuttle you back again.
Members of the Iglesia Ni Cristo Church of Christ heeded the city's call. They are here at Ron Colbus Center to help in sandbagging despite the cold weather. The members were joined by fellow volunteers.
When the mayor of Ottawa declared that we are in a state of emergency because of the spring snowmelt and the added rainfall in the beginning of this month, well, there was a great need of volunteers to help fill sandbags to help those who are in need. And with that being said, we took the initiative and launched this project to gather as many volunteers as we can, and we'll be helping many people.
Reporting from Ottawa, Canada, I'm Sabir Mufti from Eagle News, 1 with 25.
Floods sparked by torrential rains have killed 29 people in Indonesia, with a dozen more still missing, officials said, marking the latest calamity for a disaster-prone nation. Landslides and floods are common, especially during the monsoon season between October and April, when rains lash the vast Southeast Asian archipelago. On Mondays, Indonesia's disaster agency confirmed 29 deaths and said at least 13 more people are missing. Meanwhile, a landslide triggered by heavy rain in Sumatra's Lampung province on Saturday killed a family of 6 and disrupted transportation links to neighboring regions. Flooding in parts of the capital, Jakarta, during the week killed at least 2 people and forced more than 2,000 to evacuate their homes. Residents of Bogor, a satellite city of Jakarta, also had to contend with 14 pythons that were set loose from a private property due to the high waters. 6 of the snakes, which were as long as 4 meters, or that's 13 feet, have been found, but the remaining 8 remain on the loose, officials said at the weekend.
Nearly 300 people have died following the world's biggest ever single-day election, which took place this month in Indonesia. Now, they didn't die because of protests or civil unrest, but because of exhaustion. The election is a horse race to the finish. Ballots travel by horseback or by boat and through the notorious traffic jams of Jakarta. According to Indonesian officials, nearly 300 election staff have collapsed from fatigue-related illness in the 10 days following the country's April 17 vote. An additional 1,878 were ill, according to a General Elections Commission spokesperson. The Southeast Asian country combined the presidential vote with national, regional, and parliamentary ones for the first time in its history in an effort to reduce election costs. Now, Indonesia's combined presidential and legislative votes are the biggest single-day elections in the world, and polls are open for just 8 hours for a nation of nearly 270 million eligible voters. But conducting the 8-hour vote in the world's largest island country proved to be an unhealthy task for many of the staffers. They are manually counting the country's paper ballots. Early quick counts of the ballots put President Joko Widodo around 55% of the vote, with his rival Prabowo Subianto winning around 44%. Final official results will be announced by May 22.
Eagle News International will be right back. Stay tuned. Sri Lankan President Maithripala Sirisena announced a ban on face covering a week after Islamist militants carried out coordinated suicide bombings that killed 253 people. Sirisena said he was using emergency powers to ban any form of face covering in public. The restriction will take effect from Monday, his office said in a statement. The ban is to ensure national security. No one should obscure their face to make identification difficult, the statement said. It came days after local Islamic clerics urged Muslim women not to cover their faces amid fears of a backlash after the bombings carried out by jihadists affiliated to the Islamic State group. Muslims in the majority Buddhist nation account for about 10% of its 21 million population. Most Sri Lankan Muslims practice a liberal form of the religion, and only a small number of women wear the niqab.
A teenage gunman who wrote a hate-filled manifesto opened fire at a synagogue in California, killing one person and injuring 3 others, including the rabbi, as worshippers marked their final day of Passover, according to authorities. The shooting in the town of Poway, north of San Diego, came exactly 6 months after a white supremacist killed 11 people at Pittsburgh's Tree of Life synagogue, the deadliest attack on the Jewish community in U.S. history. San Diego County Sheriff Bill Gore said those wounded, including the rabbi, who had injuries to both index fingers, as well as a female minor and a 34-year-old man who were injured by shrapnel. A 60-year-old woman died from her wounds.
During the shooting, 4 individuals were wounded and transported to Palomar Hospital. Sadly, one of the individuals succumbed to their wounds. The other 3 are in stable condition at Palomar. One is a female juvenile in stable condition, and 2 adult males are in stable condition. Sadly, an older female died from and succumbed to her wounds she obtained in the shooting.
Now, Gore identified the suspect who was arrested after fleeing the scene as 19-year-old John Ernest and said he had no prior arrest record. He said Ernest burst into the Shabbat of Poway Synagogue, where there were around 100 people, shortly after 11:20 a.m. local time, and opened fire with an assault weapon that appears to have malfunctioned, preventing him from inflicting more harm. Gore said an off-duty Border Patrol agent who was at the synagogue at the time of the shooting opened fire on the gunman as he was fleeing, striking his car but missing the suspect. The man was eventually apprehended by a San Diego police officer who had been monitoring dispatch radio and raced to the scene.
As our officer was exiting the freeway, he clearly saw the suspect in his vehicle. Suspect pulled over, jumped out of his car with his hands up, and was immediately taken into custody by the San Diego Police Department. As the officer was placing this 19-year-old male into custody, he clearly saw a rifle sitting on the front passenger seat of the suspect vehicle, and the suspect, as I said, was taken into custody without any further incident.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu condemned the atrocious incident, calling it, quote, an attack at the heart of the Jewish people. 2 Israelis, an 8-year-old girl and her 31-year-old uncle, were wounded in the attack, according to an Israeli Foreign Ministry spokesman, adding that their condition was good. Gore said authorities were examining Ernest's social media activity and establishing the authenticity of an anti-Semitic open letter he apparently published on a far-right message board hours before the attack. The manifesto is similar to one posted on the same message board by Brenton Tarrant, a white supremacist who was behind the March 15 mosque attacks in Christchurch, New Zealand, that left 50 people dead. Meanwhile, Los Angeles officials said that they were boosting patrols around synagogues and other places of worship in light of the attack.
The San Diego Sheriff's Department and the San Diego Police Department are conducting additional patrols at houses of worship throughout San Diego County.
Now, speaking at a rally in Wisconsin, President Donald Trump denounced the shooting as a hate crime and offered his support to the victims.
Our entire nation mourns the loss of life, prays for the wounded, and stands in solidarity with the Jewish community. We forcefully condemn the evil of anti-Semitism and hate, which must be defeated. And we are grateful to the law enforcement personnel for their courageous response, incredible response today by law enforcement.
Saturday's shooting comes amid a rise in hate crimes in the United States, the majority targeting those of Jewish faith. Last year, the Anti-Defamation League, which combats anti-Semitism and discrimination, reported a 57% leap in the number of anti-Semitic incidents in 2017, the sharpest yearly spike since the 1970s.
4 people were killed and 4 others were injured when a crane collapsed Saturday afternoon in the northwestern U.S. city of Seattle. In a statement, the fire department said The crane fell from the roof of a building and hit 6 vehicles below near the southern shore of Lake Union, which lies in the center of the city. It said 3 men and 1 woman were killed, 2 of whom were operators in the crane, while the others were in different cars. Of the 4 people injured, the fire department said a 27-year-old man, a 25-year-old woman, and a 4-month-old baby girl were taken to hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. The Seattle Times reported the crane was used as part of construction work to build a new Google campus in the city, a fast-growing tech hub famously home to e-commerce giant Amazon. The fire department said a full and thorough investigation into the cause of the crane failure is being conducted.
Tens of thousands of people hit Hong Kong streets on Sunday to protest against a government plan to allow extraditions to mainland China. The crowd swollen by anger over the recent jailing of democracy leaders. The extradition proposal has already sparked large protests and mounting alarm within the city's business and legal communities who fear it will hammer the financial hub's international appeal and tangle people up in China's opaque courts. But Sunday's protest was one of the biggest in the city in recent years. The demonstration comes just days after 4 prominent leaders of Hong Kong's democracy movement were jailed for their role in organizing mass pro-democracy protests in 2014 that brought parts of the city to a standstill for months.
大陸司法不獨立、審訊不公平，同埋人權冇保障嘅情況底下，我哋係對逃犯條例嘅修訂涵蓋大陸啦，認為時機未成熟。
大陸嘅政權咧唔係我哋可以理解嘅嘢咯嚇。咁如果個移交包括埋大陸政府咧，我係好大憂慮嘅。
People were chanting, "Step down, Carrie Lam." Lam is the pro-Beijing leader of Hong Kong. Hong Kong has a separate legal system to mainland China thanks to one country, 2 systems. The former British colony was handed back to China in 1997 on condition it would retain a high degree of autonomy except in foreign and defense affairs for 50 years. But earlier this year, Ms. Lam's government announced that it would overhaul the city's extradition laws so that for the first time, suspects could be extradited to Taiwan, Macau, or mainland China on a case-by-case basis.
Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez's socialist win snap elections without the necessary majority to govern solo in the fragmented political landscape marked by the far right's entry into parliament. Watch this.
Hemos hecho que pase. El Partido Socialista ha ganado las elecciones generales y con ello ha ganado el futuro y ha perdido el pasado.
The socialists' victory raises the possibility of more instability in Spain. Sanchez depends on alliances with rivals in an environment that has soured since Catalonia's failed secession bid in 2017. A big development was the rise of the ultra-nationalist Vox party. It won just over 10% of the vote.
Bienvenidos a la resistencia. Seguimos adelante. Seguimos sin miedo a nada ni a nadie. Seguimos por España. ¡Viva España!
For the first time since military rule ended in the 1970s, a far-right party is set to enter parliament. Spain has no significant far-right party since the death of dictator Francisco Franco in 1975.
Malacanang sent well wishes to Japanese Emperor Akihito, who will be ending his 3-decade reign on Tuesday, making him the first emperor to abdicate in 200 years. Presidential spokesperson Salvador Panelo said the palace is melancholic. but respects the emperor's decision to step down from his throne and to relinquish it to his son, Crown Prince Naruhito. The palace feels melancholic about the abdication of Japanese Emperor Akihito, who is considered a good friend of the Philippines, Panelo said in a statement on Monday. He added, but he has made a decision and we can only respect it and wish him well with whatever awaits him after he leaves the throne. Panelo expressed confidence that Crown Prince Naruhito's assumption would augur well for Philippine-Japan relations. He noted that Japan's $9 billion investment and aid package for the Philippines spread over 5 years is the largest amount the Japanese government has committed for a single country. The presidential spokesperson was also hopeful that ties between the Philippines and Japan will remain strong under the reign of Crown Prince Naruhito as the new emperor. Meanwhile, Panelo recalled the time Emperor Akihito, together with his wife, Empress Michiko, visited the Philippines in 2016 to commemorate the 50th or the 60th anniversary of the normalization of Philippine-Japan diplomatic relations. He also recalled the time President Duterte was humbled by meeting the Majesty at the Imperial Palace 2 years ago, where he personally extended his gratitude for the kindness and compassion of the Emperor. Reports showed that Emperor Akihito's decision to end his reign stemmed from concerns about his age, declining health, and his desire to abdicate while he is still well and capable. Prince Naruhito, 59, who ascends the throne on Wednesday, is the elder of Emperor Akihito's 2 sons.
Indonesia's Navy said that the Vietnamese Coast Guard rammed one of its vessels off the coast of Borneo as it moved to intercept a boat suspected of fishing illegally in its waters. The Navy subsequently arrested a dozen Vietnamese fishermen after the high seas clashed in the southernmost reaches of the South China Sea on Saturday. Jakarta claims the area as its exclusive economic zone, waters where a state has the right to exploit resources. The Navy said 2 Vietnamese Coast Guard ships tried to prevent the apprehension by ramming its vessel, causing damage to the hull. The fishing boat sank possibly due to an accidental collision, Indonesian authorities said, without elaborating. 2 fishermen escaped detention by jumping into the water. They were picked by the Vietnamese Coast Guard, which then fled, the Navy said. 2 years ago, Indonesia changed the name of the southern part of the South China Sea to the North Natuna Sea in a bid to show its sovereignty in the waters. More recently, it inaugurated a new military base in the chain of several hundred small islands to beef up its border defense. The moves have prompted criticism from Beijing, whose claims in the sea overlap Indonesia's around the remote Natuna Islands.
And the news continues here on Eagle News International. We'll be right back.
Health is our most important asset, and it should always be a constant effort to seek ways to take care of it. That includes professional medical help from the best available. The Manila-Beijing Medical Associated Incorporated is known as one of the most specialized centers in medical services, backed by several experienced physicians in Chinese medicine. At an accuracy rate of 98%, countless patients who visited Manila-Beijing Medical Associated Incorporated have already been treated and cured.
Marami po ospital na napuntahan, pero wala ring nangyayari. Somebody introduced me to Manila-Beijing Medical Associated. After 2 treatments, gumanda ang pakiramdam ko.
My friends introduced me Manila-Beijing Medical Associated, and luckily, I got cured. So I sincerely want to thank the doctors of Manila-Beijing Medical Associated.
For the past 30 years, ang dami ko nang na-take na mga gamot. Nothing happened to me. So until one my friend introduced me to Manila-Beijing Medical Associated, you know what? All my illness was cured.
For any health problems or incurable diseases, you can visit Manila Beijing Medical Associated Incorporated, located at 843B Sabino.
Welcome back. The consuming public will be digging deeper into their pockets to fill their transportation needs after local oil companies announced a moderately substantial hike in the retail prices of petroleum products. And it is set to take effect 6 a.m. on Tuesday, April 30. In separate advisories, Filipina Shell, Petron Corp, PTT Philippines, Sea Oil, Petrogas, and Phoenix Petroleum said unleaded gasoline will be going up by 75 centavos per liter, while diesel will be raised by 80 centavos per liter. Firms carrying kerosene will likewise increase its retail price by 90 centavos. Last April 23, gasoline prices were also raised by 10 centavos per liter, while there was no movement in the prices of diesel. An oil executive said that the imminent oil price hike simply reflects the current upward trend in the world crude market.
Canadian and Japanese leaders on Sunday jointly trumpeted a rebooted Pacific Trade Pact that came into effect at the start of the year without the United States. The Trans-Pacific Partnership, or CPTPP, removed trade barriers among 11 nations, representing nearly 500 million consumers in the Asia-Pacific region in a bid to counter China's growing economic influence. U.S. President Donald Trump withdrew from it in 2017, but it was ratified. Before it was ratified at a joint press conference in Ottawa, visiting Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe and his host Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said the pact has benefited tremendously citizens and businesses of member nations, including Canada and Japan. The CPTPP stands in stark contrast to rising protectionism sparked by the United States, he said, noting that Canadian beef exports to Japan have tripled in recent months, while the Americans do not have that kind of access. In the meantime, Abe said his countrymen were enjoying more high-quality Canadian products under the pact, and vice versa. I have high hopes for further expansion of the export of Japanese high-quality products to the Canadian market. Canada reached a deal last year with the United States and Mexico on a new continental trade pact, while talks between Japan and the United States to carve out a trade deal continued. Abe's visit to Canada came after he traveled to Washington to play golf with Trump, and to Europe, where he urged British and EU lawmakers to avoid a no-deal Brexit.
The International Monetary Fund said U.S. sanctions on Iran, rising unrest in the Middle East and North Africa, and oil price volatility are dragging regional economic growth. The IMF warned in a biannual economic outlook report that prospects for the region are clouded by elevated levels of uncertainty. The global lender said such uncertainty may increase investors' perception of risk for the whole region, leading to capital outflows and exchange rate pressure. The IMF forecasts the economy in Iran, the second largest in the region behind Saudi Arabia, will shrink by 6% this year after contracting by 3.9% in 2018. The bad news for Tehran comes after the United States reimposed sanctions last year following its withdrawal from a 2015 nuclear accord. Jihad Azur, IMF Middle East and Central Asia Director, said the dire projection was made before the U.S. tightened up measures targeting Iran's oil industry last week, meaning the pain could get even worse. Iran's woes have a knock-on effect on regional figures. Gulf Cooperation Council, or GCC countries, Bahrain, Kuwait, Oman, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates were forecast to slightly buck the trend, improving the 2.1% growth from 2.0 in 2018. Now, the IMF said economic growth in the broader region was negatively impacted by rising conflict, corruption, slow reforms, high levels of debt, and continued oil price fluctuations. After the first wave of Arab Spring uprisings in 2011, the region is now witnessing fresh upheaval in Algeria and Sudan, and fighting intensified in Libya and Yemen. As a result, reforms in the region have become more urgent to decrease dependence on oil and create millions of jobs, especially for the youth. Azur said, quote, "For oil exporters, they are important to be less dependent on the volatility of oil price and for diversifying their economies."
More news will be coming your way when Eagle News International returns.
Health is our most
alas 6 hanggang alas 7 ng gabi.
A community project initiated by the members of the Iglesia Ni Cristo was held at Turnmoss Park in Manchester. It was supported by the local community in Stratford, Manchester, in their bid to raise awareness of the local conservation project. Grace Rivera reports.
A community project initiated by the members of the Iglesia Ni Cristo is happening here today. A large group of people of all ages and from all walks of life have turned up here at Turnmoss Park to help plant trees and sow seeds for the arrival of spring.
My name is Victoria Johnson. I'm on the committee of the Friends of Turnmoss.
My name is Cassandra Frexel. I'm from Manchester, and today we are doing a tree planting event.
I'm James Brother Peter. I'm from the Leeds congregation, and we gathered here together, people from all over the district, to plant trees. This is part of a community project that we're involved in here, and we're giving our piece of goodwill and giving of our time and our energies to help this community here in Manchester.
Today we've been working in various areas of the fields. We've been working on the mound, stripping turf off and sowing with wildflower seed. We've been planting trees in the orchard. We've been planting willow over in a very wet area near the school. We've been doing the garden that you can see behind me here. And we've been stripping turf off over in the wet field.
Like all of our shirts, they are from Iglesia Ni Cristo Church of Christ, and you know, we are just a group that like to give back to the communities.
An act of community kindness. Wherever possible, you should help people. It's in Proverbs, and that's what we're here for today. We're here not only to express our wish to be in the fresh air and the environment, and to maintain that environment, but also, of course, to spread the word that the church is here. We are community-based, and we're willing to play our part in the community of Manchester. Well, I'm feeling very tired at the moment, so I think I've stretched my muscles quite a bit and I'm full of fresh air, but we're invigorated, we're strengthened.
Your team have been absolutely wonderful, enthusiastic, friendly, worked really, really hard, and we've covered so many areas in one day. It's a transformation, and it's so heartwarming. Because these things take a lot of planning and thinking about and organising, and you just cracked on and got it all done, and as you can see, what a difference it's made. It's gone from looking like a derelict, unloved piece of land full of rubbish, and now it's a beautiful park. So wonderful teamwork, yeah. I would love to welcome you again. We'll have to think of some more work for you to do, but yes, of course, I would love to welcome you here again, yeah.
Nothing restores your faith in humanity more than seeing the willingness of these volunteers, some of whom have traveled from far places to unite in this endeavor. It was a delightfully fun day spent in the company of family and friends who gathered to support a charity cause. Definitely one that made a positive difference, not only in the community, but also in the protection and preservation of our natural environment. Reporting for EBC London Bureau, I'm Grace Rivera, and I'm one with 25.
Volunteers from various non-profit organizations throughout Hawaii have been helping in public schools as they try to fill the gaps caused by the ongoing shortage of teachers in the Aloha State. Now, some of these volunteers recently attended a book drive in Honolulu, which was sponsored by the Iglesia Ni Cristo, or Church of Christ. Our correspondent Mio Acenas has more.
Since its establishment in 2013, Ohana 100 has been promoting literacy in several ways. These include providing free and new and gently used books to kids and organizations, as well as supporting literacy initiatives in communities throughout Hawaii and beyond.
At that early age of 2, 3, 4, you know, if you start them at reading, it'll just change their lives. They'll start opening books and realizing, oh, you know, there's more to life than my iPod, television. For the first half of the year, we read, we introduce them. You can see them opening books, looking and trying to read words, trying really hard, this extra attention, this extra help that the teachers cannot reach because they have so many children in the classroom. And yes, it makes a big difference. And they get excited and they look forward to the next reading.
In its fights against literacy, Ohana 100 has been forging relationships with organizations such as universities, private corporations, and other non-profits. One of those partners is the Iglesia Ni Cristo, Church of Christ, which recently hosted a book drive in conjunction with its Ion Cinema Film Fair in Honolulu. There, church members, their guests, and even the general public donated new or slightly used books, and later on enjoyed several short films produced by church members in Hawaii.
Yes, we do a lot of outreach events like these where brethren gets to donate and they get to increase their their faith and their brotherhood, and this is kind of like really helping us getting together and enjoying ourselves and doing something good at the same time. And these books will definitely reach out to not just here in the U.S., but I think it goes I think it's an international thing. Yeah.
And what did those who attended think about the outreach event?
I mean, like when I first heard about it, I was really excited to hear that we were doing both at the same time. We're here to give, you know, in the fight towards, or in the fight against illiteracy, right? I think it's important to let the community see what we're about. You know, giving back to the planet. You know, why not share not just our faith, but our, you know, lend a helping hand.
And so this whole activity was wonderful because it's a double purpose. Everybody's happy. We're able to fulfill our obligation as well as members of the church to help the community. We're able to put together or collect like 800 plus books. So, you know, the church will always do everything that's good for the members and for the community as well.
Ohana 100 also sees the opportunity to call for more volunteers in Hawaii to help children read and appreciate traditional books.
Most of the volunteer readers are all retirees, but now we're bringing in the young kids. We have like high school kids getting involved, and they're really moved by it because now they can see how important it is to have these kids open up a book and have somebody read to them and, you know, enjoy books. Really have the feeling. And we're so happy because we just had a new volunteer from Roosevelt High School, and she was very touched that she didn't realize how, you know, she could help, and we're really proud of that.
At the conclusion of the event, representatives from Ohana 100 expressed their gratitude to the Global Church for the generous donation of more than 840 books, which they hope will benefit many children in schools across the state. Reporting from Honolulu, Hawaii, I'm Yua Senas, 1 with 25.
Avengers Endgame, the hugely anticipated series ender from Disney and Marvel, set a new standard for Hollywood blockbusters this weekend with stunning hauls of $350 million in North America and $1.2 billion worldwide, Industry Watcher Exhibitor Relations estimated Sunday. To put the North American figure in perspective, that means the final chapter in the adventures of Iron Man, Hulk, Thor, and the company took in 33 times what the number 2 film Disney's Captain Marvel earned for the 3-day weekend, a more pedestrian $8.1 billion. Avengers looks likely to remain strong, having drawn a sky-high 96% rating from critics on the Rotten Tomatoes website, with a star-studded cast including Robert Downey Jr., Chris Evans, Mark Ruffalo, Chris Hemsworth, Scarlett Johansson, Bradley Cooper, and Josh Brolin. It took in a jaw-dropping $329 million in China alone, Variety reported. Avengers could lead to the biggest revenue-generating summer in box office history, according to ComScore's Paul Degarabedian. This success at the box office didn't happen overnight. It's an enormous payoff for Marvel's superhero franchise, which kicked off 11 years ago with Iron Man. That film included an end credits scene that opened up the possibility of the larger interconnected universe, which has since played out over 22 films. Avengers Endgame is the fruit of a decade's worth of labor for that larger story, building on the characters and stories that came with each film. Gotta watch that. Don't forget to like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Tumblr, also check out our boards on Pinterest and pictures on Instagram. I'm Sam Cepeda, thanks for joining us.
And that's it for tonight's broadcast. I'm Alma Angeles and
we're 1 with 25.